Distinguished guests, speakers, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon, and on behalf of Sarawak Metro Sdn Bhd, I would like to welcome everyone to our webinar session on the Socio-Economic Enhancement Development Program. In short, we call it SEED program. But before we hear more about this program, it is my pleasure to invite our Director of Corporate Communication, SEED program, and Bumiputra Relation, Mr. Alexius Bareng, to say a few words.
Good afternoon, and welcome to our webinar on the Socio-Economic Enhancement Development Program, or SEED program, as we like to call it. It's a great pleasure to welcome all of you to our first webinar, which we hope will be the first of many in the years to come, as we strive to ensure the growth of our SEED program. Through our webinar today, we hope to give you a clearer picture of Sarawak Metro's SEED program. And as the SEED is synonymous with growth, with potential, and with promise, we at Sarawak Metro are inspired to plant the seed of opportunities that we hope will grow into something big in the future, especially for Sarawak. We want to play a part in achieving Sarawak's aspiration to become a high-income and developed region by 2030. And we hope that through this program, we will be able to develop and strengthen the local supply chain for a modern, rapid transit industry, especially to prepare the industry to support the Kuching Urban Transportation System project and our ART operations, ranging from maintenance, repair and overhaul, parts and components manufacturing, and systems integration. There's no doubt that support from the local industry players is crucial in ensuring the long-term sustainability of our Kuching Urban Transportation System, as well as the continuous improvement in our ART service and feeder bus service into the future. And through the SEED program, we also aim to prepare Sarawak's future workforce via the development of courseware and modules in institutions of higher learning, TVET-related programs, as well as research and technology projects to encourage innovation in the areas of transportation and hydrogen technology. Our aspiration for the SEED program is to develop the skills and know-how of our local industry and workforce through collaborations with the most significant suppliers involved in our Kuching Urban Transportation System project. In coming up with our SEED program, we were of course inspired by the good things that we have seen achieved, especially through the Industrial Collaboration Program, or ICP, that has been implemented in Peninsular Malaysia for many years. We know that the main aim of the ICP is to provide a platform to generate a positive net revenue from investments made by the federal government. And of course, the ICP has created several success stories, one of which is the MRT assembly plant. For the ICP of the MRT-1 project, Malaysia collaborated with Siemens to build an international standard assembly plant in Rasa in the state of Selangor, which provided more than 150 high-skilled jobs, trained local engineers, as well as localized some of the parts and components of the MRT, such as seats, LED lights, and cable trees. The ICP only applies to federal-funded projects. State-funded projects are excluded from the ICP policy. However, we at Sarawak Metro believe that if the same practices are adopted here, then it could provide added value to the investments made under the Kuching Urban Transportation System project. Today, we will have two speakers who we hope will be able to convey to you our aspirations for our SEED program. First, we have our SEED program manager, Ms. Priscilla Annabelle Bishop, who will brief you on Sarawak Metro's SEED program. And secondly, we have Yang Berbahagia Datuk Zailani Safari, who will share with us his experience in managing offsets and the Industrial Collaboration Program. I'd like to highlight here that Datuk Zailani was the first Chief Executive Officer of the Technology Depository Agency, which is the governing body for the ICP in Malaysia. And we are honored to have him assisting us in building a firm foundation for our SEED program here in Sarawak. We hope, after this webinar, all of you will have a clearer picture of our initiative, objectives, and the many benefits the project will bring to the people. With the Kuching Urban Transportation System project, Sarawak will reach new milestones and set higher benchmarks in the public transport sector. We believe that the Kuching Urban Transportation System project will change the way people travel for business, education, and leisure here in the capital city of Sarawak. It's also very exciting that there are plans to have a similar public transport system in other urban areas in Sarawak in the future. And we are also excited and inspired to be able to add value to investments in our public transport sector through the SEED program. With that in mind, we are looking forward to your support for our SEED program. And after listening to both our speakers today, if you believe that you can play a meaningful role in our project through the SEED program, I encourage you to take part by registering your organization with Sarawak Metro. And you can actually do this quite easily by filling in the registration of interest form that's available in our website, or you can reach out to us directly. Once again, I'd like to take this opportunity to thank all of you for attending our session today. And I hope this webinar will provide you and your organization with useful information that would allow you to explore opportunities to collaborate and work together in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Alexius, for the brief introduction on the SEED program. To know more about this program, let us welcome our SEED program manager, Ms. Priscilla Annabelle Bishop, to tell us in detail what this program is all about. But before we hear it from Ms. Priscilla, if anyone has questions, please post them in the chat box and we will attend to them later. Ladies and gentlemen, let us welcome Ms. Priscilla Annabelle Bishop.
Thank you, Letitia. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining our webinar for today. My name is Priscilla and I am the manager for SEED program in Sarawak Metro. Before I start my presentation on SEED program, let me brief you about Sarawak Metro Sdn Bhd and Autonomous Rapid Transit System, or we call it ART system. Sarawak Metro was incorporated as a wholly owned subsidiary of Sarawak Economic Development Corporation in February 2018 as the implementer of Kuching Urban Transportation System, or we call it KUTS. KUTS will serve as a backbone system to minimize and alleviate traffic congestion towards Kuching city centre. At the heart of KUTS project is the ART system that will become the first rapid transit system in the world, powered by hydrogen fuel cells and runs on virtual track. Generally, ART system consists of several complex systems to ensure that the vehicle operates effectively and efficiently. This includes signaling and control system, SCADA system, telecommunication system, automated platform gate, computerized maintenance management system, automatic fare collection system, depot equipment maintenance vehicle, information technology system, operation control system, and last but not least, the hydrogen vehicle, in which we call it H2V. The hydrogen vehicle is a part of a system under KUTS project. H2V also consists of several complex subsystems and components such as car body interior, car body exterior, undercarriage, propulsion system, hydrogen system, articulation system, air conditioning system, and communication system. The reason why I highlighted all of the systems related to ART is to show the opportunities that may arise from this project. Although ART system and hydrogen may be something that is very new to us, but we may have the capability to localize some of the works, especially those related to telecommunication system, IT system, air conditioning system, and other parts and components in the ART. The key is to see which areas we think requires an upgrade in terms of capacity and capability, or areas that has a big market potential. The investment from our beloved state will be not of a value for money unless Sarawak uses this opportunity to develop our local supply chain and manpower capabilities so that the ART system can be effectively operated and maintained throughout its life cycle. Sarawak Metro is committed to develop the skills and the know-how of local industry and talents through socio-economic enhancement development, or we call it SEED program, in support of the state agenda in becoming a high-income and developed state by 2030. This was highlighted under the Sarawak Economic Transformation Plan in 2016 up to 2030, and also in the post-COVID-19 Development Strategy 2030. SEED program aims to support and accelerate Sarawak state government to achieve its mission through leveraging the procurement made under COOTS project. I will share how this can be done in one of my slides later. Overall, this program will benefit Sarawak in terms of creating added value from the investment, generating more capable workforce, capitalize on emerging markets and technology, exporting our knowledge and our expertise globally, generating more employment and economic opportunities, and last but not least, to strengthen Sarawak public transportation system. Next, we go to the objective of SEED program. SEED program was developed with 6 specific objectives to meet the aspiration of the state and to provide long-term and sustainable benefit to Sarawakian. First objective is to have a strategic partnership towards the development and strengthening of competency, capacity, and market potential. Second objective is to maximize local content. The third objective is to establish sustainable local industry through supply chain development. And next is to promote transfer of knowledge, or TOK. And after that, the next objective is to have more collaboration in strategic research and development and commercialization project. And last but not least, to facilitate in the strategic human resource development initiative to enhance local expertise and capacity and creation of employment. Okay, now I will show you how does it work. Normally, when the government procure goods and services from the supplier, it will go through a tendering exercise before the award of contract. Once the government identifies the supplier, and after the supplier provides the goods and services, payment will be made and the transaction will end after the supplier has fulfilled all of the deliverables in the contract. However, with offset or with industrial collaboration program, or in this case, through our SEED program, the supplier is obligated to propose to the buyer, in which, in this case, it is Sarawak Metro, list of potential developmental programs in addition to the goods or services to be supplied. Sarawak Metro will start to use this concept under the procurement of system work packages for the KUTS project. The OEM, or the supplier, or the contractor in this case, will be known as the SEED provider. They will propose to Sarawak Metro on the list of potential projects such as Sarawak local content, capability development, transfer of technology, TOT, transfer of knowledge, TOK, research and development and commercialization, as well as other projects that matches with Sarawak current need in terms of technology, market, industry capacity, and capability. The potential beneficiaries or recipient of these programs are Sarawak Metro, the Higher Learning Institute, Research Institute, and Training Institution in Sarawak. Of course, in addition, we also include industry players as part of the beneficiary in this program. This arrangement also requires the full support from various ministries and agencies such as Ministry of International Trade and Industry, Industrial Terminal Entrepreneur Development (MINTRAD), Ministry of Education, Science, Technological Research, or in short, MESTER, or SME Corp in terms of trade facilitation, incentives, and financial assistance. SEED program is designed to be the direct economic development tool to work in tandem with any future procurements. It is also designed to harness the opportunities for local Sarawak companies to innovate and to grow the Sarawak transportation industry. Next, I'll show you what we want from this SEED program. First, we start off with Localization Initiative. Under Localization Initiative, we want to build Sarawak local industry capacity and capability through collaboration with ART contractors. This can be achieved through supplier or vendor development program to create ART supply chain in Sarawak and to produce more local vendors related to ART. As I mentioned in the previous slide, there are areas that we could localize, especially parts and components in some of the subsystems of ART. We could also propose strategic areas that require specific knowledge transfer program through the OEMs or the supplier, such as hydrogen technology or the maintenance, repair and overhaul. Through Localization Initiative, we can also collaborate with the supplier for capability promotion and business matching, as well as to increase our international business opportunity through global supply chain for ART and hydrogen technology. Some of the proposed projects that can be implemented under this initiative are to maximize the usage of Sarawak local content through locally sourced parts and components and other relevant activities. It aims to utilize local services such as testing, engineering, and installation service to support the localization activities. Next is joint venture. Suppliers are encouraged to invest or set up local operation via a joint venture with at least 51% share ownership of Sarawak company. Next is on contract manufacturing partnership with ART supplier and also on accreditation and certification of vendors. Vendors with potential will be developed through accreditation and certification based on industrial or international standard. Next on what we want from SEED program is Center of Excellence Initiative, or we call it COE. The establishment of COE is required to address the gaps of the current local workforce capabilities and to cater to the emerging needs of transportation specialists in Sarawak. The establishment of COE is also in line with the Education and Human Capital Development Strategy outlined by the Sarawak Post-COVID-19 Development Strategy 2030. In the future, it will be the skills and innovation hub for urban transportation in the region. Under this initiative, there are several proposed projects that can be implemented, such as development of courseware and syllabus, as well as infrastructure, with the usage of equipment, tools, and training aids. Next, enhancing trainers' competency in curriculum development, training delivery, and training evaluation through Train the Trainer program. Next one is to have industrial collaboration between industry players and academia, as well as research institute. Next one is to have upgrading of skills of the current workforce in the transportation and energy through certification and accreditation program. And last but not least, to have an on-job training and a real industry working experience through secondment or attachment program. The development of COE requires synergized efforts from Higher Learning Institute, Research Institute, TVET, and Training Institute, as well as entities such as Sarawak Research and Development Council, and also Sarawak Science Centre to support the Sarawak state development in creating agile workforce which are globally competitive. Next, on what we want is to have a Readiness Program Initiative. The Readiness Program Initiative is Sarawak Metro's plan to prepare ourselves before the start of the first phase of ART revenue service in 2025. This is to ensure that we have the right manpower with the right skill set to operate the ART system effectively and efficiently, and to provide the best services for the users. This is also part of the preparation for the manpower requirement to maintain the life cycle of the asset, which is the ART and its related system. Under Readiness Program Initiative, there are several proposed projects in the pipeline. First, we start off with a Young Talent Program. This Young Talent Program is actually an apprenticeship opportunities for Sarawakian graduate with at least 2 to 3 years of working experience to be attached to Sarawak Metro for 2 years. The idea started due to the current economic and pandemic situation, which leave many unemployed youth in the market. This program will provide them the opportunity to be exposed to the industry and to enhance their employability in the future. Next one is to have knowledge transfer program through secondment or attachment to the OEMs or supplier, specifically on the operation and maintenance. And last but not least, to have a knowledge transfer program through training of our future trainer by the OEMs or supplier, specifically on operation and maintenance. And now we have come to the last slide of my presentation, and I hope that my explanation will provide some lights about our SEED program. I would like to encourage all of the interested parties to register your organization with us by filling up our registration of interest form in our website. Please visit our website at www.mysarawakmetro.com/register-seed or scan the QR code in the slide. Please fill in the form and press submit, and we will contact you for more information regarding the submission. For information, this is just the initial phase of potential recipient identification for our SEED program. However, please take note that we may require more information from you, and the shortlisted potential recipient will need to undergo an assessment exercise to qualify them as a SEED recipient. So this is the end of my presentation. If you have any question regarding SEED program, please type in your queries in the chat box, and I will pass the floor to our moderator, Ms. Letitia, for the next session. Thank you.
Thank you, Pris, for that informative explanation on the SEED program. And we hope you all now have an idea what this program is all about and how you can participate in this initiative. Next, we would like to invite our subject matter expert, Dr. Zailani bin Safari. Dr. Zailani has been involved in the ICP or offset program since 2005, and currently he is very active in promoting this program nationally and internationally. Ladies and gentlemen, let us hear it from Dr. Zailani.
Okay, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi ta'ala wabarakatuh and good afternoon. Welcome back to session 2 of this webinar. My name is Dr. Zailani bin Safari. I'm the lead consultant for SEED, and I'm going to talk about the Industrial Collaboration Program in Malaysia, talking about the success stories as well as the lesson learned. The content of this particular presentation will talk about, number 1, is success story of other countries. Number 2, the success story for ICP implementation in Malaysia and some high-impact ICP. And so talk about the example of the outcomes and why ICP is needed in Malaysia. And then we're going to talk about what we have learned and how to promote to go to the next level. And then in terms of ICP, talking about what are the expectations and the challenges, talking about the conclusions, and talking about, and then later we're going to have the question and answer session. When we talk about the success story of ICP program or any program that is similar to that, then there are many countries that have implemented ICP throughout the world. I'm going to capture some of the examples. Number one is Turkey. They have started the ICP program in 1983. And then South Korea, they also have started way back in 1983. United Kingdom, they have helped the people to do offset program in 1987. Spain, 1996, as well as Czech Republic in 2004. Most of these offset program actually with regard to the procurement of the defense asset, and then the offset carried on in those countries actually related to defense industry development. Now we talk about offset program in Malaysia. We have a success story talking about the Trend 100 engine offset program. So this is related to the procurement of A380 aircraft, and then we have procured about 28 sets of Trend 100 engine from Rolls-Royce. And because of the value, then Rolls-Royce actually is to implement offset program in Malaysia. And then this is the first one that is talking about the commercial implementation in Malaysia, together with an OEM that is Rolls-Royce. So we have developed about 6 offset programs worth of 230 million euro, and then the implementation to Malaysia worth about 1 billion euro. Talking about the high impact ICP program in Malaysia, we would like to take the case of MRT1 implementation. That was way back in 2011. So the outcomes of this particular offset program, so we have local investment on a facility worth about 20 million euro. And then we have international certification for that particular local company to enable us to participate in the global supply chain. And then this particular facility, together with the international certification, have become a catalyst for industry activities around Rasa Industrial Park in Rawang, Selangor. It has created about 160 high-skill jobs. When we talk about a high-skill job, we're talking about engineers with professional certifications, with professional qualification, and so on and so forth. Of course, we are talking about technology know-how transfer to be shared with local industry player. And then from this particular ICP, actually, we managed to elevate 2 local companies to become the global supply chain for Siemens in Germany. The examples of outcomes for offset program from the MRT1, actually, as I mentioned just now, we're talking about the certified rolling stock assembly plan. So this is where we talk about the creation of high-skill jobs, as well as to become the catalyst of business activities in Industrial Park. At the national level, actually, we managed to create what we call as a National Rail Center of Excellence, National Rail Center of Excellence, or NRCOE, to become a hub for the purpose of our talent development in Malaysia. So we are targeting to train about 600 skilled talent by 2020 and 2030. And then, of course, we are going to carry out train the trainer programs by OEMs. And then the trainer of the trainer program is very important to make sure that we are able to transfer the knowledge from the OEM to Malaysia to a group of people. Then this group of people will be able to train other people in Malaysia, and we expand the knowledge. And then I think the other one that is a bit outside of the real scope is talking about the cyber security. So we have a collaboration with National Defense Institute of Malaysia. So this is where we develop the modules and competency development in cyber security. Why ICP is needed for Malaysia? So basically, ICP could become a platform for a purpose of Malaysia to embark into the global supply chain or the global market, as well as to be able to really support our economic development. So what are needed? Number one, of course, we need to have the people and organization. When we talk about the people, we're talking about the sincerities, the transparencies, and integrity of the providers as well as the recipient. The organization, we are talking about the support from the government to make sure that the program will achieve its target. And of course, we need to have the process. This is where at the national level, talking about the adherence to the national ICP policy and Malaysian ICP management framework. But at the Sarawak level, I suppose that it is adherence to the SEED guidelines that was established by Sarawak Metro, and the industry players as well as the stakeholders need to adhere to all the processes as stipulated in the guideline. And then from here, actually, we need to make sure that we have a good outcomes, that we have a good project with good impact and workable for economic development, and it has to be sustainable for long term, and it has to be able to really assist a local company to participate in the global market. So what we have learned in ICP, so ICP or in particular for Sarawak is talking about seed, then it has to be sustainable. It could not be a one-off type, because basically we want to make sure that we give some kind of assurance to our local industry player that there will be a continuous job for them. And then for that purpose, then it create a sustainable revenue for the companies. And then for the obligor, then it has to be regarded as opportunities rather than obligation, because basically if you talk about opportunities, then you're willing to put more investment and willing to really help local people to achieve certain target. And the ICP cost by the obligor, it has to be regarded as investment. So it's very much related to obligation and investment. So basically, the obligation has to be regarded, instead of you regard it as obligation, it has to be regarded as opportunities. When we talk about the financial support for ICP, it has to be regarded as investment rather than cost. Similarly to seed, it has to be regarded that way. And then, of course, between the recipient and then between the obligor, there must be some kind of understanding, talking about the willing provider and then willing recipient. And then it has to be supported with a realistic implementation plan. We cannot have things on the blue sky and to make sure that things are really implemented on the ground. So we have to really make sure that we have to assess what is the situation, what is the ecosystem look like. Then we come out with some kind of implemented program to be worked together between the obligor as well as the recipient. And then I think the most important thing is the support from the stakeholder, from the authorities. From the national point of view, is talking about the federal government, but of course for Sarawak, state government will play a very significant role to make sure that they can support this particular program and to make sure that the industry player would see this support, and then they will be able to really move forward. So in terms of the expectation, so from the perspective of ICP, we could see that we would expect that ICP is a tool that could be leveraged to develop our local economy as well as technology development. So similar to seed, then seed has to be regarded to be as a tool to be able to really support the development for economic as well as for the technology. And then it has to be expected to be sustainable. So it has to be a win-win situation between the provider and the recipient. In the case of the provider, it is the OEM, and in the case of the recipient, it will be the local companies. And then transparency is actually a core aspect, means that everybody has to really do whatever they need to do. And then it has to be transparent with the parties so they know what's going on. And of course, it has to be aligned with the needs of the present government, be it at the national level as well as the state level. And then it has to be a long-term relationship between the OEM as well as the local players. What will be the challenges that we're going to be faced when we talk about the implementation of SEED or ICP? Number one, actually, is the support from the government and the synchronized movement between the various ministries, mean that various ministries has to be able to understand each other, they are to complement to each other. So this is something that has to be achieved to move forward. And then I think the challenges is to make sure that there is sincerity between the ICP provider to provide an effective program, because normally when we talk about business, they will really focus on the business. They don't really focus on the development side. So in this case, when we talk about SEED, we need to be able to really see what is needed for our development, and these particular programs or this particular help assistance need to be provided sincerely by the ICP or the SEED provider. And then paradigm shift, I think it is a challenge, because most of the players, most of the providers, we see the ICP as a cost, but we need to be able to really convince them that it is not a cost, but it is actually an investment for a long term. And then I think the thorough understanding is also something that we need to have, and it is a big challenge, because basically the ICP provider need to understand that whatever they do will be providing some help and assistance for the local governments to move forward and develop their economy. So as conclusion, we will see that ICP in the case of Sarawak Metro SEED, it is actually a catalyst for a collaborative platform, and it will be to support the requirements for the state as well as for at the national level. So it has to be based on the interests of the stakeholders. If in federal, talking about the Malaysian government interest, but for Sarawak, actually is for the state government interest, what is their need, what are the agendas, and so on and so forth, and how are we going to support it using SEED. And then, of course, SEED should be able to create a win-win situation, and it's best if the stakeholders, the main stakeholders, in this case is Sarawak government, to be able to really participate and create win-win situation for the Sarawak government and for the ICP provider as well as for industry player. And then this particular implementation has to be guided by a guideline. So in our case, we have established or developed what we call as SEED guidelines. So hopefully that this guideline will be adhered by all stakeholders, be it the state government, be it the local companies or local industry players, so that all the processes are adhered, we will be able to move forward. And then, of course, the last, we have to be able to create a win-win situation in which everybody will be happy in terms of the implementation, and they will get, the needs or their interests are being addressed. So talking about the state government, talking about Sarawak metros, talking about industry players, talking about the SEED provider, all the interests are being addressed carefully or being addressed what we call as fairly. So I think that's about it. So we are going to open this session for question and answers. So I would welcome some questions through the chat box, and then we are going to provide the answer accordingly. Thank you very much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you, Dr., for your lengthy explanations on the ICP program and how we can relate it to our SEED program. Once again, our big thanks to Dr. Zailani, and we hope you have enjoyed his explanation on the program. And now we are to move on to the question and answer sessions. But before that, I would like you to join me in viewing the short video introduction to the Kuching Urban Transportation System project. Can we have the video, please?
Sarawak's Kuching Urban Transportation System comes to life. Next station is Mass Exchange. Provide and improve the infrastructure to ease traffic congestion. The commencement of operation for the Samarahan line will begin in 2025. And soon after, the Serian line. Sarawak Metro brings to you the Automated Rapid Transit ART system. Hybrid of a train, a bus and a tram, dedicated lane. Fast interval time between departure and arrival. Maximum capacity up to 300 passengers. Runs on rubber tires. Trackless system. Intelligent signal communication. Priority seats. Hydrogen technology. Making Sarawak more seamlessly connected. Improving the economy. Attracting future investors. Provide more job opportunities. Sarawak Metro, unifying connectivity.
Ladies and gentlemen, I do hope you enjoyed the short video. And now we open it for the question and answer. We have both Ms. Priscilla and Dr. Zailani with us to answer your questions. And if you have any questions, please post it in our chat box so that we can take it and get it to be answered. We have actually received one question Let me read it to you all. The question sounds like this. Is there any possibility for a company from Semenanjung, Malaysia, not Sarawakians, to be involved with the SEED program? Maybe we can get Priscilla to respond to that question.
Okay. Actually, that is a very good question. Okay, talking about having the possibility of companies from the West Malaysia to be part of the SEED program. Under SEED program, we would like to maximize Sarawak local content. So for that, we would like to encourage companies that is non-Sarawakian to perhaps looking into possibility of a joint venture with Sarawakian company, and then also to JB with the OEMs to perhaps set up a manufacturing plant or assembly plant here. So yeah, I think that is more suitable lah. The answer for that.
Do you like to add into the response, Dato'?
Yes, of course, I think it's a good idea to have a combination or a joint venture between the companies in Sarawak and West Malaysia. And one of the advantages that we have for the industry players in West Malaysia is that we already established what we call as National Rail Center of Excellence, in which it will be able to provide some kind of objectives, some kind of framework that will be usable between West Malaysia as well as the East Malaysia industry players. So I think, yeah, it's good as a starting point to have some kind of a collaboration or some kind of cooperation between companies in West Malaysia and East Malaysia.
All right. Thank you so much for that answers. And we hope that also answers the question that was posed. We have one more question. Let me just read this. How can we bridge the gap between big and small players through this SEED program?
Okay, Priscilla, you want to answer that?
Okay. Actually, under the SEED program, we have 3 initiatives. The first one is Localization Initiative, and also the second one is on the establishment of Center of Excellence. So under the Localization Initiative, what we want is to have capability and then capacity development through collaboration with the ART contractors. So through this localization program, we can perhaps look into having to develop a tier 1 companies to be having a joint venture together with the OEMs. And from there, we can also look into the development of tier 2 and tier 3 players to support the tier 1 player as well as the OEM, so that we can create the supply chain here in Sarawak. So for that also, we can also look into a vendor development program in which looking into capability enhancement program, where we can come up with the knowledge transfer for these companies, as well as looking into the possibility of getting the companies to be accredited or certified. And as for the next initiative, which is the development of Center of Excellence, of course, when we're talking about gaps, it's not only on the industrial gaps, but in terms of manpower gaps. So since we are dealing with a new technology here, and then it's ART, I mean, it's a very niche area. So we also have to prepare our manpower here through having programs such as development of modules or development of syllabus that is related to ART, and then perhaps looking into programs such as train the trainer to be fit into this Center of Excellence initiative. And perhaps, Dato', do you maybe you can share some of your experience in terms of closing the gaps between the big and small players in the Semenanjung?
I think one of the effective ways of doing that actually is through the COE, the Center of Excellence, because basically by having a Center of Excellence, and then of course by having a structured strategic development, then we're able to sort of funnel some of the talents that's already available in Sarawak towards a certain sector. So in this case, when we have a COE that is very close to the industry players, then the COE will be able to sort of address the needs of the industry player. And then the COE also will be able to take some talents that is available already in Sarawak, and then to do some kind of bridging courses to make sure that they have the required talents and the required competencies and ready to go into the industry. So I think the COE will be a good, I would say, a mixed bowl to make sure that the requirements from the industries, the requirement from the OEM, as well as the preparation from the ministries will be there, and then we could sort of mix it and then going towards the same goal and the designated goal. I think the COE will be a good platform to do that. So in our experience in Malaysia, in West Malaysia, yes, we do have. I think the development of talent or human capital is very important. In Malaysia, in West Malaysia, we do have a few training centers, but from our observation, then these training centers need to be sort of make it into one platform, and this is where the COE comes in. So that's why we have in West Malaysia what we call as a National Rail Center of Excellence that becomes a platform to synergize all these training centers and become one to make sure that they're going towards the same goal. And every activities and every programs are being synergized towards a similar goal. Yep.
Right. Thank you, Bob. We have one short question this time. How long will this seed program run?
Okay.
Please answer that.
Usually, it will follow the duration and the timeline of the main contract. But I think perhaps in ICP, I believe we follow the same thing as well, right, Dato?
The duration of ICP in Sarawak seat, normally it follow the main contract period, but sometimes it could be longer than contract period or could be shorter than contract period. But these terms has to be spelled out upfront by the OEM or the supplier and the government. Says that there might be some kind of extension on the program, and the government, if the government agree onto that, then of course the ICP or in the case of Sarawak, the SIP program could be implemented longer than the contract period, or it could be shorter than that. So it really depends on the implementation of the project.
Meaning that Obligo, they need to give earlier notice just in case if the duration of the program takes longer than the duration stipulated in the contract, right?
Right. So as the rule of thumb, the project or the seed or the ICP will be similar to the period of the main contract, but it may implemented shorter than that, or it may be implemented longer than that. But it has to be informed to the government upfront.
All right, thank you. We still have some more questions. Seems that this one, okay, this next question is the existing or future market in ART industry competitive enough for local industry players to sustain their business operation in the future once this KUTS project completed?
Well, I think that is one of the most famous questions that posed by the industry. I believe if the industry players here, they are able to achieve the targeted competencies through getting the certification or accreditation from the OEMs or based on the industry standard, they can be part of the global supply chain. I believe so. I mean, they could be part of the global supply chain for that. But another thing is we have to look into the potential of this local industry to market themselves, because with big projects such as KUTS, it acts as a catalyst. But when we're talking about sustainable businesses, of course, it also depends on the industry, how they survive, and how they can look into ways to market themselves and then to reach into a different market that is other than Sarawak.
Yeah, from the perspective of ICP as well as offset, the programs that being developed actually it becomes windows of opportunities. So the seed or ICP will provide the opportunity for the local company to participate and to cooperate with global players. But of course, in moving forward, then it has to have some kind of commitment from the local players themselves to make sure they can success into the business. Because seed or ICP they cannot really spoon feed everything. We can provide the opportunity, and then again, the industry player has to be able to move forward, come up with the business plan, and so on and so forth, to make sure that they are still competitive in that particular sector.
And I think also looking into the economic of scale, perhaps by having a continuous project that is related to transportation or ART would also help the industry. But again said, this is chicken and egg situation. But I believe if the industry, they can prove themselves worthy, and then looking into the survivability, I believe they can even market their products or services in a different market other than Sarawak.
I just take an example in Malaysia. We have a company called CTRM. So there was a GLC. So they are doing composites. They got involved in a set program with Rolls Royce. I mentioned about the purchase of 28 engines just now in my presentation. So before that particular program, actually CTRM was only known as a composite manufacturer for racket or hockey sticks, that kind of thing. So they are not really well known by the global players. But we put them into our offset program, and it provides them to an opportunity to prove themselves that they could provide some of the parts and components, composite for the aircraft engines, and then they have sort of provided and produced a good products. So they are very much well known by the industry players, the aerospace industry players, and later they got more contracts. So I think this is, and then of course now they are really well known in terms of the aerospace industry, talking more about composite parts and components. So as I mentioned just now that the offset or seed will be able to provide the opportunities, but it really depends on the company to be able to really push themselves and prove to the industry players that they are well worth.
Thank you so much. I think that is really informative for our industry players to look at how they can participate in this program. Okay, we have another question. How does a small business organization with small financial capacity can participate in this seed program? Is there any financial assistance provided? Maybe Chris, you can take this first.
Okay, actually, for seed program to be successfully implemented, I believe a strong support from Sarawak State government is also needed, because we have to look into having some sort of like a grant or other type of assistance, such as getting the industry to be certified, or maybe looking into the capability development of our local talent here, and also other continuous industry competencies programs. But other than that, I believe that there are other methods in which perhaps the seed provider could even show their interest to invest in this program by providing some sort of like assistance in terms of financing some of the programs to this local industry. And there's another way also where we can get external investor, such as companies related to GLCs or other private sectors that are keen to be part of this program and to invest to the industry player that is related to this program. Perhaps, Dato', maybe you can also share your experience in terms of this having a financial assistance for these?
Just now mentioned about CTRM. So what happened is that since CTRM managed to secure more orders or more projects from global players, and then of course the Ministry of Finance have injected more capital into CTRM to make sure that they will be able to sort of sustain the required finance requirements. So I think this is where the government will sort of put a support to local industry players to make sure that they can move forward. And then of course, in other case that we have, and CTRM actually is a GLCs, and this is where the government of course will need to support them. But also we have cases where we have private small industry players in rail, and then we have programs from SME Corp, for example, in which they have provided grants. And then this is where the government need to have some kind of strategy. Where do we want to go? And then from there, they need to come up with programs. And then under the programs, and they have activities. And with these activities, they could do some kind of budgeting. So I think this is where the government will be able to really support the local players based on the activities, program, and strategies. And of course, as you mentioned just now, that there are also some private industry players they like to invest in. If some of them they see that this new technology actually have potential, so they invest in, and then from there they will be able to get some kind of returns. But again, normally the private investor they need to see, they will do the real due diligence to see whether these particular programs can sort of provide a good returns or not. Normally for the government, they will provide the grants based on the development costs. But for the private investors, they will do the real due diligence just to make sure that they will get the returns at the end of the day.
Okay. As we all know that we have higher learning institutions among our guests this afternoon, I believe this question is from them. How does academia, university can be involved in the SEED program?
Okay. The academias they can participate through having a collaboration with a seed provider by looking into programs such as on research and development, or perhaps looking into programs that is related to innovation, because I think industry and the academia they must have a frequent collaboration to look into what are the challenges that the industry is facing currently. And especially when we are dealing with hydrogen or ART is a new area. So I believe there's a lot of room for us to improve. And also we can even become the forefront in terms of innovation, because since it's a new technology, we can look into having R&Ds on how we can improvise it based on the needs of Sarawak or needs of our country. And also look into having some sort of like an engagement, and perhaps also looking into the development of modules and courseware for under the SEED program.
Okay, from the perspective of ICP, I think the engagement of HLI is very important in this type of program, whether it's ICP or whether it's SEED. One of the elements that we have put into the guidelines actually is the technology transfer as well as human capital development. So I think, as we know that the most basic elements of ICP or SEED actually is for the economic development of the country, of the state. So the talent development or human capital development is very important, and it has to be supported with the technology development. So this is where HLI should come in. Number one, as Chris mentioned just now, they can talk about the module development, co-development between the provider as well as our HLI. so that that module will be able to be used by the HLI to train the students that's coming to the HLI, and then it becomes a long-term kind of thing for the higher learning institute for the learning module. That's number one. Number two, when we talk about research and development, so this is where we talk about technology development. So I think the HLI and the OEM or the supplier need to work together to really be able to identify what are the technologies needed by the stakeholders in terms of developing their economy as well as technology. And then I think from there, the HLI need to push together with SMU from Sarawak Metro, for example. They need to push the OEM to make sure they're able to transfer some of the knowledge to local HLI to make sure that local HLI is able to capture this knowledge and then expand it for the purpose of the local usage. I think that is very important. Number one, we are talking about the talent and human capital development, and number two, we're talking about the technology development. And then this is where I think some of the grants from the government, such as from Minister as well as from Mintred, should be able to be allocated for the HLI to carry out their research and development.
I think under the C program, we can also build some sort of like a collaboration, not only with the OEMs, but usually OEMs, they have a collaboration with universities in their country of origin. So they can provide the linkages with the universities that they already collaborated with the universities in Sarawak, and looking into the areas for R&D or C here.
That's a very good idea, because when we have an offset program with Rolls-Royce, actually Rolls-Royce, they have some kind of collaboration with Cambridge University and Sheffield University. So basically what we have done, we have sort of connect our local universities such as UTM, USM, as well as UKM to these universities. And that one actually is way back. It was way back in 2009. And then University of Cambridge and University of Technology Malaysia still continue until now. And then I think they have really come up with more programs. And then I think it's very much useful for both universities. So I think it's a very good idea to look into the universities that OEM already work with, and then link it with our university and work on certain programs and certain technology. And it has proven that it's working as in our offset program.
All right, thank you, Dato. I believe this question is also for you, Dato. What is the difference between ICP and a seed program?
Okay, ICP actually is a program that is for any procurement that is funded by the federal government, whereas SEED actually similar program, but the source of fund for the procurement comes from the state government. That's the difference.
Mm-hmm. And in terms of in terms of the SEED program and ICP in our scenario, Chris, maybe you can shed some light the difference between ICP and SEED program.
Okay, the Kuching Urban Transportation System is actually a state-funded project. So it's a little bit different from the federal funded project. That's why we don't really follow through the industrial collaboration program. But the thing is, from the ICP program, we know that it provides a lot of benefits for Malaysia. And we would like to emulate the same thing here. So without having started the programs here, we might lose so-called the bus or the trend. So we don't want it to happen. We don't want it to be a missed opportunity. So that's why Sarawak Metro, we are committed to embark on this program and to see how can we assist the industry as well as the academia in terms of the development, especially in the transportation as well as hydrogen, and also other related technology. Because if we don't do it right now, we are going to miss a lot. And since by 2025, we are looking to having to operate as well as to maintain the ART. We need to strategize right now and look into programs to equip our people, not only in terms of the industrial development, but also in terms of our local manpower capability. So I believe SEED program also provide a continuous benefit for Sarawak in the long term, not only after the end of this program. We hope that the program under SEED will be carried forward, even as Dato mentioned just now, under the collaboration with CTRM. Even after the ICP, they also managed to come up with a lot of other programs that is related to R&D with the OEMs, and those are the things that we are looking forward to happen here.
All right, thank you. Our next question, maybe after this we'll take one more question after this one. How do we make sure that the supplier cooperates with the SEED recipients in this program?
How do we make sure? Okay, we are looking forward to have a very friendly SEED provider, I mean OEMs. I believe we have to look into having a suitable environment which the OEM look at this program not as an obligation, but look at it as long-term investment for their business, as well as for their future business with Sarawak. Because if they are looking only on the business term, of course, they don't. I mean, they might find it a little bit. So not to say a burden lah, it's like an obligation on their side. But what we want to do here is that to collaborate with them so that we can see the future opportunities that we can have with the OEMs here. And then we never know, perhaps there might be other opportunities, not only for Sarawak, but also for the OEMs. And perhaps I think Dato will also have a good input on this based on the ICP.
Yes. Actually, for OEM and the supplier, whether we like it or not, they always look it from the perspective of business. So whatever activity they do, you like it or not, whether they are friendly or not, at the end of the day, they always look into what is it for them, and then how can they support their business. So number one, throughout the world, the community have changed the idea that when it comes to ICP or SEED or any activities that is similar to that, we have to be able to create sort of like a perception that it is not an obligation, as Princess mentioned just now, but we have to be able to create a perception that it is actually a business opportunity for them. But how are we going to do that? We're supposed to be able to see that what is the spin-off. Normally what we say is what is spin-off of that particular project. Say that if they need to transfer a technology, because we need a technology locally, and that technology is only available at OEM. So we need to have a proactivity to transfer that technology to local companies. So we have to be able to provide, okay, after the transfer, what is it that in terms of business that we can talk about? So normally we talk about a spin-off. So the spin-off normally is in the form of doing business with some kind of business model. But as the SEED authority or the SP authority, we also have to make sure that, okay, there will be some kind of benefits to the OEM, but we have to make sure that there are also benefits to the government as a stakeholders. So I think this is something that we need to make sure that, number one, okay, we able to sort of create a perception that there will be some kind of long businesses after this. It's not only one-off, it is to be sustainable for a long term. There will be some kind of return to the obligors, as well as to the government, as well as to the people in the state. And number three, they will be able to create more opportunities, because we never know that in future, we start with one windows of opportunities, then it will lead to another windows of opportunities. So it become a bigger windows of opportunities. So I think we should be able to create that to make sure that they are able to sort of give some kind of commitment in terms of their obligation to us in Malaysia.
Okay. our next question. I believe we can take one more question after this,
Sure.
then before we wrap up. Yeah, but our audience can just post a question and we will attend to them later. Yeah. For our next question, how do we know that we are qualified as seed recipient?
I think this is for Chris.
All right. In my presentation just now, I encourage everyone who are interested to participate in this program to register your interest by filling up our registration form in our website. And after that, we will collect all of the information and put it in our seed database. And once we already identified the projects to be implemented under this program, we may carry an assessment exercise to see whether the company registered are fulfilling certain criteria that we are looking for in terms of the project as well as in terms of program. So after they fulfill all of the criteria and then they manage to score the assessment exercise, then they will be notified by Sarawak Metro to be part of the seed recipient, local recipient list.
Okay, do you like to add in to that, Dato, or we go for the next question? Okay, this will be our last question this afternoon. I believe a lot of people are keen to know who will come up with the list of projects to be implemented under the seed program.
Okay, a very interesting question. Actually, to inform everyone, back in May, we actually conducted an industrial survey in which we are trying to get a feeling of how the industry in Sarawak, in terms of the capacity and capability. So from the assessment exercise, we have identified the areas as well as the strategic programs that can be implemented under the seed program, and we actually come up with a list for that, and we will include that list as part of the tender document for the system work packages under our project.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Ms. Priscilla Annabelle Bishop, our seed manager. Thank you to our subject matter experts, Dr. Zailani. Thank you to all the audience for your questions. You have a lot of questions for us this afternoon. Do not stop to post your question to us. We will, like we said earlier, we will attend to them as soon as we can. And like Priscilla mentioned, please fill in our seed registration of interest form so that we can provide whatever necessary input that you need to know from us. With that, thank you to all of you who have been participating in this webinar session. To our speakers, thank you and have a nice day and a pleasant weekend. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.